Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can see us. Jayme Johnson here. And today, you guys, I am so excited. I have my friend. I'm so glad that I can call her my friend. She also is a former client. Courtney Carver is
Hi guys.
here. Hello. Courtney, she and I got to know one another in ways. And so, Courtney, take us there because I was wondering, I was actually thinking, and by the way, while we're kind of getting started here, if you're here, I see a couple people are already on, just leave a little comment. Tell us, hey, where you're from, where you're watching from today. I'd love to see that. But Courtney, I was wondering, I remember like the book kind of coming up a little bit during immersion, but it wasn't done yet, right? It was just like the seed
No.
of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy because we met in Costa Rica in right about 3 years ago this time, right? It was in the spring.
Yes, you're right.
Maybe it was March or April. I can't remember. But that was when I really was excited to take next steps in writing a book. I had been pitching books to different agents and publishers over the years, and it just hadn't been the right time and the right fit. And that was one of the reasons I joined this immersion program, to really think about how I can move more into that book writing place of my career. And I remember when you and I met in I think it was in one of the main rooms, kind of, it was like a yoga studio slash, before I had an offer, but then had a book offer, wrote the book, and then you and I got together, and here we are.
I know, so cool. And then we had Camp GLP is in there too, as part of one of Jonathan. All this is about Jonathan. Jonathan brought us together, Jonathan Fields, for those of you that know who he is. But and then I remember at camp, Courtney was such a help to me because I was doing a workshop at camp. And Courtney was like, hey, I was like nervous and I wanted to make sure I was doing the right stuff. And so Courtney's like, I'll listen to your presentation before your workshop. So we went to her cabin, just the two of us, and I like stood up and I sat on her bed and gave her so anyway, she gave great feedback and was a great guinea pig. So.
Well, it was good information. It was before the book was finished, and it was all the things that I was thinking about anyway. So I was like, check. Oh no, I haven't done that thing, or
got to figure that out. Yeah. So anyway, well, thanks for being willing to do this. I'm excited to dive in a bit. First, I want to give people a background of who you are that don't know who you are, just to give them a sense of, what you've done over the last 8 years now. It's been 8 years since you started Be More with Less, right?
I know. I can't believe
crazy.
it.
So BeMoreWithLess.com, Courtney started that site 8 years ago, and this minimalist fashion challenge, Project 333. And she's gained national media attention, Oprah magazine, Real Simple. She was featured in the Netflix documentary Minimalism. That was 2 years ago now, right? Almost 2 years ago. Not quite. It was 2016, but maybe. Yeah. And so she's just built this awesome platform. People really resonate with her message about simplicity. And so then she wrote the book, Soulful Simplicity, that came out in December of last year. So almost 6 months ago now, which is hard to believe. It's already been almost 6 months. It's
4.
5. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Because it's
4
May
months.
1st. You're right.
Yeah. So it came out the end of December.
Yeah.
It's been 4 months. It hasn't been that long. Although I'm learning that, like, if a book isn't 2 weeks old, it's an old book. Or that's how it feels. Like, it still feels really new to me, but in the big picture, it's been out 4 months.
It's like years. It's been out for years. Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's still very new. And so those of you that have not checked it out yet and you're interested at all, it's not just about like purging your closet and getting rid of clutter and cleaning up your kitchen. It's so much more than that. It's just about this whole idea of living more simply. And so the subtitle, How Living with Less Can Lead to So Much More. So anyway, we'll link up to her site before we hop off here so that you can go check out more about Courtney. But so I just want to dive in and ask if you because our folks on the worthy side are looking at us as people that are marketing authors. And I like to say we market authors versus just books, because we really do look at it as a broader way of how can you as an author that has a larger business behind you, how can we use the book to leverage, exposure for your bigger business? And so I wanted to talk first, to ask a question more about how you got going when you decided to start Be More with Less. Again, it's been 8 years ago now. So I think that's one key thing that people should keep in mind. That we often are like, she's this overnight success. And it's like, no, it takes some time, right?
It takes time for sure.
But could you point to like a couple of things that you feel like really made a big difference for you in terms of like giving you that boost and getting your audience built? Were there just a couple of, and it could have just been luck, but whatever it may be, are there a couple of things you can point to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there was some luck or fate or whatever you want to call it involved, but for the most part, it was a pretty intentional plan on my part to grow this blog into a business. So it never started as a hobby or I hope this happens. It was my intention to turn this into my life's work on some level. Now, I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't even know how to do it. I mean, there I was using a WordPress blog and terrified of technology. So I would be in the back end thinking anything I touch, I'm just going to blow up my site. And then this will all be over. So I really didn't know what I was doing most of the time, which in hindsight was a really positive thing because I wasn't afraid to try different things. It was really important to me to build this in a way that supported my health and my family because the job that I had, working my day job wasn't doing that. It was really bad for my health, bad for my state of mind, my happiness. I had no time to do anything, I felt like, and I was always super overwhelmed. And I didn't want to create another business that replicated that sense of, stress and just working for a paycheck pretty much at that point. So instead of, doing this big leap into everything and doing all the different things, I just started the blog and a Twitter account, and that was it. So nothing on Facebook, nothing anywhere else. Now, this was 8 years ago when Twitter was a great place to be, in my opinion. I think it's changing somewhat. Although, side note, one way that I think Twitter is really good for now is making connections with people because it's not as active there anymore. So when you reach out to someone who maybe you wouldn't have an opportunity to connect with through email, there's a better chance that they're getting that message. So, all right.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah.
So obviously all of these platforms change over the years, but what I would do is just get really comfortable on one, not spend every day, all day there. And then when it kind of felt like, okay, this is going well, I've got a little bit of a system in place, I'd add something else. And so I think the first thing I added was a Facebook group for Project 333. Okay. And that fashion challenge that I started very early on, I probably only had 500 subscribers to the blog at the time, but that really kind of shot everything up pretty quickly because it got people's attention. They were very interested. Again, me not knowing what I was doing. I mean, while starting a business was very intentional, making this fashion challenge anything bigger than a fun personal challenge for myself and anyone who might be happen to read that blog post was not in my vision. I didn't imagine that it would be anything other than a fun 3-month experiment to see what would happen if I dressed with fewer items of clothes. And it would be great things to write about. I had no idea that when I wrote that first post, 100 people commented on that post and said, I'm in, I want to do this. 100 comments on a blog post, that was just unheard of for me then. And now, because that's really changing as well. But I knew that then in that moment that this is something that people want to talk about. So I gave it a hashtag and started encouraging people to share what they were doing. And so many people were sharing their experience that it got the attention of the Associated Press. And so this is only a couple months in. I hadn't even finished the challenge. And all of a sudden this story was in newspapers and websites all around North America and beyond. So from there, it just kind of snowballed. I think that's definitely the number one reason people come to my site as a new person. But there have been many times over the years that I've thought about just distancing myself from it completely, because I got to a place in my own closet in life where I didn't really want to give that much attention to clothes anymore. So I was like, maybe I've talked about this enough. Why am I still doing this? And for a while, Project 333 had its own website, its own social channels, and in 2015, I merged everything into Be More with Less. And again, started thinking, maybe this has run its course. And I did an event, friends Mark and Angel Chernoff do this great event called Think Better, Live Better every year. And I spoke one year about willpower. I believe that was the conversation. And we talked a little bit, and decision fatigue. And we were talking about Project 333 for maybe, 90 seconds within this 30-minute presentation. And then the next day we did more just for people who wanted to ask me questions. So it wasn't the whole group. It was probably 50 to 100 people. We just all got in a room and we're talking about my presentation on decision fatigue. And we talked about Project 333 the entire time. And so that's when I thought, okay, people
aren't done with it.
Right. Yeah. And so that from there sparked the Tiny Wardrobe Tour. So, and then things just kept growing on that platform. But in most cases, people come in and they start the challenge, and then we start talking about the bigger picture, which is exactly the journey that I was on and am on and am excited to bring other people on.
Yeah. And, sometimes you're right. People need an entry point, and that's a great entry point for them, right? They think, okay, this is something I can tackle. And it's new to them. It seems so old to you because you've been talking about this for years now. And so, yeah, I think about that with musicians sometimes that go and do tours and sing the same songs over and over and over, and how it must feel so like, I'm so over singing this song. But, nobody else is tired of it. Like, your fans want to hear it anyway. And
they bring new life to it, which is why I still love talking about it now, is because I get to see how people are incorporating it into their own lives, how it's solving problems for them, how it's making them curious about other areas of living more simply and intentionally.
So you mentioned Twitter back then, and then you said something about you had 500 or so subscribers on your blog at the time. But did you have an email list, and were you conscious about building that then, or no? Like, that wasn't even in the picture?
Zero. In fact, this is going to make you laugh. So I didn't even really think about an email list until 2015.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. It might have even been 2016, but I think it was 2015. Up until then, I had FeedBurner, right?
Yeah.
Through Google. Mm-hmm. So I knew that there were people subscribed, but I had no idea, what the email really looked like when it went out until I saw it for the first time, and I was horrified.
So ugly and
nothing was supported. It was all just this like wing and a prayer. Like, you send an email out into and it's still a little bit like that, but I have better data now, which is helpful. So I never had until 2015, at least, so the first 5 years, no type of opt-in for joining the email list, no real sense of who was on the email list, nothing like that. And I still have never been that interested in, really digging down into that data or trying to, the word funnel just makes me squeamish. Like, I really try to connect with my community the same way I want to be connected to with other people. So I probably skew on the conservative side of the marketing world, only because I came from that world and I really wanted to get out of it. But I still really understand that this is a business that I'm growing, and I want to create things that my community absolutely loves, that it adds value to their life, that it helps them in some way. So not much on the email front until 2015, and then got more serious about that, especially when I thought about how I wanted my business to grow, and really started thinking about how all these social platforms are changing all the time. Perhaps email is the most consistent way that I can be in touch with people and communicate with people. When somebody replies to an email of mine, now even I'm not quite as quick, but I respond to every email that there's a legitimate question or thoughtful feedback. And I think that is the best way to do it. I still love the other things. I like posting on Instagram. I see a need for Facebook, although not my favorite place to hang out. But for sure, when I want to say something or when I want to connect, it's email is the first line for me.
Yeah. So that's good that's just come along in the last 3 years, but you've definitely seen the value of that. And you see the necessity in having a list and kind of owning that, knowing you have direct contact with your people. Because that is what I find a little frustrating. And yes, open rates and not every single person opens your email, but gosh, way more people open an email than the algorithm on social media shows. Like you put something up on social and 6% or whatever, see it. And so, I know some folks think email's dead but I
don't think so.
Yeah.
And it's blog plus email. So I'm not typically sending any email to blog subscribers that I'm not publishing on the blog. So yes, email is great, but I know a good percentage are on Feedly or another feed reader or something like that. That's fine. I mean, why am I, and I don't do the, click to read more in the email. If people want to read it in email, I want them to read it in email. If they want to read it on the blog, I want them to read it on the blog. I have no real motivation to make people visit the site. And most people who do that, it's a numbers thing. They're looking for numbers to demonstrate to advertisers about web traffic.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not concerned about that and that's not part of your overall need for your business, then doesn't matter. I love that.
I mean, just because asking anyone to take an extra step in anything anymore is a big risk. Like if the most important thing to you is that people read this one thing that you wrote, let them, make it easy for them.
It's so cool to, just to be really intentional about even that seems like such a small thing, but to have thought through that is awesome, to think about who your people are, how to make it easy for them. How does this impact my larger business? Is this really something I need to do? Like I love that you have intentionality about even the little things like that. I think
it makes it more enjoyable, I think, for both sides. And you have to keep asking those questions. Like, even now I have to say, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I going to share this thing? How is this going to be helpful? Is this just going to make people laugh? I mean, that's good enough for me on a lot of days. But whatever it is, it can't just be, whatever's on my mind comes out my mouth and goes onto social media, because God knows nobody wants that to happen. Nobody.
We don't need more of that out there. That's for sure.
No.
Definitely need plenty of that. Oh, funny. Okay. Well, so now I want to ask you just some stuff specifically around the book itself, if you don't mind. You talked about when we met and how that was something in you. So you've had this wanting to write a book in you for years. And I'm just curious, like, why? Like, what is that? Where does that come from? Why the book?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I definitely love to write. So that's on my side, one of the whys. And then thinking about the bigger story that I wanted to share, I really considered how people read blogs. And this is my main way of communicating. And I think it's awesome, but people don't actually read blogs anymore. They skim them. So they don't have time to read it word for word. And to share a bigger story, I think, even the way our eyes work, the way we absorb information in, like, as we're scrolling versus opening the pages of a book, is so, like, the experience is so different. And so I wanted to have that opportunity to connect with people through this other medium, which I don't think I could do on a blog or through email. It's not as, like, and I know some people read books electronically on Kindle or another device, but I wanted this message that they could turn into their own story and just, if possible, literally hold it close to their heart. I wanted it to be different than reading a blog, which can also be moving and action oriented or whatever. But this was a new thing, and I wanted to do it. I had self-published books before. And so the other part of this puzzle was like, why traditional publishing?
I was going to ask that too. Yeah, that was one of my questions. Yep.
And I wanted this, with the self-publishing, at the time I had, I was pretty new into the blogging process and into my business. I didn't have anything to invest in terms of, hiring help for those books. So it was me like editing them. I mean, I still get little notes about typos on some of these, but I wanted to see what it would be like to work with a team and to be supported in that way. And there were definitely like highs and lows in that process, but something that I really enjoyed. Like I enjoyed being part of a group in doing this. And I love working by myself too. So I'm glad we weren't all like sharing cubicles and working in the same office. So I love the solitude part of writing a book. And then I also really enjoyed working with you and your team and my publishing team. It was just an interesting process. It was something new and yeah. And I probably wouldn't have been able to figure out the logistics of like publishing a book with a cover and all of those things and getting it into bookstores. Or if I could have, that would have been my full-time job. And I just wanted to be the author, the writer. I wanted to be able to focus all on that instead of trying to do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's overwhelming. I mean, I think, a lot of authors talk about how daunting it is to write the book, and the process of just writing it is hard enough, even if you're a writer and you love to write, but it's a task, to do that. And then to have to market it and, to make that switch in your head to now, okay, how do I get it out there in the world? And I find a lot of authors and not only that, making that switch, but also sometimes people don't come with both giftings. Like they're writers, they're not marketers. They don't like to promote their own stuff. They just want to like write and get it out there, and, or vice versa. Like sometimes people are more geared toward the marketing and wanting to do that and struggle more with the writing of it. But for you, were there any, I guess, did you find one much easier or harder than the other? And were there like surprises along the way, things that you're like, oh, I didn't expect that? In either the writing, I mean, you'd written before, but working with the publisher or even on the marketing side?
Whew.
Loaded question.
So I know the right thing to say as a writer is that writing books is really hard and it's terrible and you never want to do it again. But from the minute I finished my book, I wanted to write more books. Like I loved, and not to say that it was easy, and not to say that there weren't days where everything I wrote down wasn't just a load of crap. I love that. Like, okay, what's my thing today? I'm going to go write my book. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit somewhere and drink coffee and write a chapter of my book. Like, I love doing that. I loved writing this book. It was challenging to have deadlines when all my deadlines before were self-imposed. So to go back to owing someone else something by a certain date, which I did, but it was still nerve-wracking. And I'm like, if you give me a deadline, I'm going to wait until 5 days before to really dig in. So I had to really fight that impulse to just wait, because you can't wait until 5 days before. I also had deadlines right around the holidays, which sounds like a silly thing to complain about, but that was challenging because, I mean, for me, whether it was the writing of the book, which was for me due on December 21st of 2016, or the launching of the book, which was December 27th or 27th,
right,
on in
next year,
2017. That meant me saying to my family, like, I know it's the holidays and I know it's, but I'm not, this has to be my priority right now. And not to say that we skipped Christmas or that we didn't have a great month, but I was very focused on work during those times.
Yeah. 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row. So I'm not going to do that again for a couple of years, at least. I hope. But yeah, the not having any control over that part of it is weird. And somewhat uncomfortable, where when you're self-publishing a book, look, you say when, where, how, what. That's not the case with traditional publishing. And then I also had a lot of questions. Like, I didn't know what was happening in a lot of cases. Like, when should I expect this to happen? Or are they going to get back to me on this? And so it was a lot of uncertainty that I was trying to figure out and understand. But it all came together. And so when I do this again, that will be so nice not to have that, just knowing that a lot of it is hurry up and wait. Like, I get a deadline and then I don't know what the deadline on the other side is necessarily. And I just have to be okay with that. And I can be, now that I know that's how it is. I also really, it was interesting to start working with different personalities and people in the publishing world who are used to doing a lot of books. They have a system in place and it's like, let's go, go, go. And I would rely on you to say, is this normal, or did that meeting go okay because it felt really weird or uncomfortable? And you'd say, no, this is perfectly normal. And that would just make me breathe a little easier. So things like that, I think, were the biggest challenge, and just learning how to work with other people and in different industries that I really didn't understand. So I had a great support team with you, with my agent, to say when like, if I didn't like the book cover, could I say something about that? Or am I just supposed to be like, okay, that's fine? So those things you have to kind of navigate and learn as you go.
You do. And it's hard. And it's always different. I mean, it's never the same experience. Even with us working with so many different authors, there were things about your situation that were different than other authors we've worked for, because every publisher's a little different. Everybody does little things differently. Or cover designs come up that you're like, what? Not in your case, but there have been some where you're just like, no, that is not going to be.
No, that did happen.
Cover. Oh, it did. Yeah. I think maybe it was that got solved before I came in the picture, maybe. But
yes, it did.
Yeah. But yeah, and it's hard to know sometimes what things to really fight and like not let go of, and what things to just be like, okay, I have to let go of this. And I know, and that can be tricky to navigate as you go. On the marketing side, when you think about, okay, the book's done, it's written, now turning your attention to the marketing, were there things that surprised you about that process that you felt like this was way harder, way easier, either way?
I don't know. I mean, I think I kind of had some realistic expectations about, even though you're working with publishing houses that have great contacts, they're marketing a lot of different books. So you don't always have the support that you think you might have. I guess working with a publisher doesn't necessarily mean you even get more support. It might. It really depends on the team that they have in place, on the timing of the launch, on all of those different things. And so I think I anticipated that a little bit. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to work with Worthy. And so that I would have my own team, my own support, because I knew that even though I had built a wonderful community and had great, amazing support from other bloggers and podcasters that I could reach out to, I wanted that extra level of help. And I wasn't sure what to expect on the publisher side. So to have them and you together was much better, in my opinion. It was really helpful. It was the best investment I made in terms of the book marketing part of it. And because, I know you noticed some pushback from me. Like, I really didn't want to overwhelm my community now with like, oh yeah, I have a book. Like, we're going to talk about that all the time. And I'm going to send you emails every day so that you buy the book. I didn't want to do that. And even though I kind of I was walking that line a little bit, I felt like there were times where I would send an email about the book and think, is this too much? Is there anything helpful in this email if it's not about the book? So I really had to think about that. The big, loud, pushy, launchy strategy that worked for a lot of people would not have worked for me in any, even if it sold more books, I wouldn't have felt good about it. And I know a lot of people who I connect with through my blog wouldn't have felt good about it either.
Yeah, and I think that is so key as well. Again, to be in touch with your audience enough to know, and you having had the years of experience of growing that audience prior to the book coming out and knowing what was working, what felt right for you, all the intentionality behind everything you do. Yeah, I think even that, just trusting your intuition, trusting your gut on stuff and knowing, and who cares? Like if we or anybody else says like, this is what you should do. It's like, if it doesn't feel right, like don't do it. Just like do what feels right for you and what you know, having been the one that built this thing from the beginning, you know? So I so appreciate that about you and about anybody that we work with. It's like, yeah. So anyway, thanks for sharing that.
Well, thanks for honoring that and finding like ways to work within that framework. I think that's one of the things I loved best about working with you guys is you'd say, here's a great recommendation, but how does that feel to you? Like, will this resonate? Does this make sense? And then we could tweak it if we needed.
Yeah, because the reality is we're coming in to you or anyone that we work with. You know, we have a 6-month window that we're working with you. You've had years of working on your stuff. And so while we can say, hey, we're familiar with this audience because this other author has an overlapping audience or whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean that everything that we've done for everyone else is going to work in the exact same way that for you, you know, and for your people. And so, yes, and it goes back to what you said at the beginning. So much of it sometimes, and it's frustrating, can be experimenting. It's just like figuring it out, you know, and that can be hard for people to say, especially for those that don't have the years of experience building up an audience like you did, where they're really just getting going on their platform. It's like, well, we have nothing to go off of to know what your audience is resonating with because you don't really have one yet. And so we have to just try a few different things to see like what gains traction and all of that, also not even just for the sake of experimenting to see what works, but also coming from that core of who you are and in alignment with what you feel is right. And so anyway, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I think too, you know, another reason why we're in business is kind of what you talked about with publishers are amazing, but you're right. They have so many books that they're putting out in any given month. And it's like, you know, they paid you to publish the book. So you got an advance from them. So it's hard for you as the author to really hold them to the fire on stuff because you're not paying them, you're paying us. And so from your perspective, it's so much easier to have a team of folks like us that you're paying to do a job, to hold accountable, to do things, because that's our job, is to do what, you know, you're paying us to do. And you don't have that with the publisher. And so it's hard when you come in thinking they're going to do all this stuff. They say they're going to do this stuff, and then they may or may not. And if you don't have anyone else that you really can hold accountable to do it, you get through your launch and it may not happen. And that's hard. So.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it too, like, let's say that they're doing exactly what they said they're going to do, and I'm making this stuff up. This isn't based on promises that were made to me or that I've even heard from anyone else. But let's say they have 100 contacts and 20 of them are TV stations, 20 are magazines, whatever they are. The rest are blogs and podcasts. They're probably taking that book and sending it to all those people. Again, they're sending new books to them all the time. They're sending out books to Good Morning America or whomever every single time. And so their contacts over there are not sharing every single book. Like, they know that another one's coming tomorrow. It really has to connect on that side too. So even if they're sending out to every one of their contacts, it's not always going to be a hit. And I think with you, what's different is that you're really looking at, okay, who are our contacts that are the best fit for this book? Like, is it going to resonate with their audience? Mm-hmm. And if they're not, you know, you don't have one person that you're sending every single book to that you work on, and you're probably working on fewer projects than a Penguin Random House, for instance. So you're not bombarding people with these books, where just the nature of the business, major publishers probably are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And you're right. They're literally putting out dozens of books every month, one publisher, and then multiply that by how many publishers there are. And
exactly,
it's crazy. And they're all hitting those same outlets. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure Oprah's not sitting around like, I wonder if we're going to get any books today. Like,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. Gosh. Can you imagine? Sometimes I think about those slush piles. Like, I can't even imagine how many books are just sitting around in offices like that just maybe never see the light of day.
I know.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you doing it all over again, and I know you have more books in you and more to come. And so is there anything thinking through this whole process that you're like, you know what, I would do this differently next time, or I would absolutely do this again next time? Either one.
Yeah, a couple things. So one thing I would do differently if I have the leeway to do this is I would have a shorter cycle in front of the launch. So the first time around, I was so excited to talk about it and get it out there. And I'm like, it's 9 months away. Why can't we start talking about it? And everyone's like, hold on, let's at least wait until we're maybe 3 months out or 4 months out to get going. I think we did a 3-month, and it was way too long. It was too much. It was too much. And even in talking with our mutual friend, Jonathan Fields, as he and I were discussing the launch in advance, I was like, and this was probably 6 months out when I talked to him, and I said, I'm building this really cool, like, little community of people who are going to support the book, and I'm going to work with them, and I'm going to send my first email next week. And he was like, whoa, too soon. Like, you're going to run out of things to say. They're going to get bored. It's too soon. So I think 2 months might make more sense than 3 months. And then the one thing that I did that I would do over in a heartbeat and plan to on my next project is a tour that is organized during the pre-order phase of the book. But one thing, and this might be too much information for right now, so just reel me in if it is, but when we did that, what we did was had books available for people when they showed up at the events. And I really want to think of a system where they can get their book immediately, but also it's included in the ticket of the event. So that for people who are coming to an event 2 months after the book release, they don't have to wait 2 months for their book, but they can bring it to the event if they want it signed or whatever.
Yeah. 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 I think the tricky thing with yours were several of your tour dates were like, well, a couple of them anyway, were like right after the book came out, right? Like the week or two after. And so, and we were trying to get as many like pre-orders through.
Right.
And there was some, so it's one of those strategic things to think through the best ways to do a lot of that.
But still, that for me was, a lot of people like to look at big bulk orders during those pre-orders with organizations, and I didn't have those contacts.
Yeah.
And so it made much more sense for me to use the tour in that same way that someone might use bulk orders.
Yeah, exactly. And it worked well. I mean, we coordinated all that, and anyway.
It was amazing.
Chrissy Barker's here, Courtney. She said hi. Hey, Chrissy Barker. I don't know if you're still here. Oh, Chrissy was in immersion with us too. Jonathan Fields. Look at us. We were just like talking all about Jonathan Fields today. Yeah, he's brought a lot of awesome people.
You'll have to link to him too.
That's right. We'll have to tag him so he sees this. Okay, I'm going to leave one last question because I know we've kind of run longer than I intended to today. But I would love for you, and you've shared so much wisdom, but if there anything you would want to leave an author that is getting ready to embark upon this journey, whether it's, on the writing side or the marketing side, any kind of nuggets of wisdom that you would want to impart to them as they go forward?
I mean, this isn't a one-size-fits-all advice, because I know there are circumstances when this isn't the case, but I think you have to put as much energy into building a community that cares about the work that you're doing and that is implementing it in their own lives, as much energy there as the book. And I don't know how I would have done them both at the same time. So even though I had book ideas before I even started blogging, they were not a priority. It was really focused on the community growth. So probably for that first year, nothing happened except I was working another job, but I was just writing 3 times a week and posting on Twitter occasionally. So that, I think we have to not try to do everything at the same time, whether it's writing and growing a community or growing an Instagram and a Facebook. We dilute ourselves to the point of being not only ineffective, but run down. So just keep coming back to, why am I doing this and why am I doing it right now? And how is this supporting not only by my business, but my health and my family and my happiness?
I love that. And I think the other beautiful thing about that too is on the platform side of things. It's like, and I say this all the time, is that when we really focus, like you said, just as much effort on the platform as in the audience as the book itself, it serves you long term for anything, for a book, for, I know in your case, you've had a few courses and things like that. It's like when you focus on really connecting with the right people, that floats all ships. It really does. And so,
yeah. And what do you want? Do you want a book, or do you want a business? Do you want something that can continue to grow into other directions? Because, I mean, who knows what the landscape of the internet is going to look like in 5 years, or the publishing industry, or any of those things. Give yourself some flexibility. And I know you said I could only say one thing, but I'm going to say another, because it's something that I fight with all the time. And that is, the timing isn't what you think it needs to be. Like, even though you think this is the right time, it might not be for 2 years or 5 years, actually. And when that time, because when I started the blog, I was like, all right, so in 2 years, I'll do this. And in 3 years, I'll write a book, and then I'll do this. None of that happened. And it's just fine that it happened the way that it did. And even today, I'll say, okay, well, in 2 years, and then I'm like, why are you saying that? Who knows if that's what's going to be happening in 2 years? So take your self-imposed timelines, like, just be a little more flexible with those, because today might not be the day. It might be the day for something different. And if you're too hung up on those deadlines, you're going to miss out on what that something different is.
And then the discernment, I think, is the tricky part of that, though. Like, the discernment to know, what is how to know when it's the right thing or the wrong thing, or if I'm pushing too hard, or if I'm giving up too fast, or, all of that.
Keep checking in with yourself, and you will know.
Yeah.
Keep coming back, because you always know, but you just don't want to hear it. So you don't ask, or you don't connect. So if you keep coming back to yourself, you will know.
Thanks, Courtney. No, it's so true. And it's like, you can't argue with that. You really can't. What's next for you? What's coming up? What do we need to know about?
Well, I just shared this with you before our chat, and I haven't really told anyone except my family. So why not share it here? I'm writing another book. And once this book launched, I knew I wanted to write another one, but I talk about timing. I was like, maybe in a couple of years. But I am working on another project with my publisher, and it's going to be all about Project 333. And right now the working title is Project 333, and the working subtitle is The Minimalist Fashion Challenge, Changing Closets and Lives Around the World, I think. But as you know, that could all change within a couple of years.
So
but yeah, I'm going to start working
isn't that
on
an interesting full circle thing? Because we started at the beginning saying you felt like maybe this message, like, people were just kind of over it. And here you are still. Now you're going to write a whole book about it, right? And
I'm so excited about it. Like, it's going to be a really fun, not only fun book to write and read, but it's going to be a fun looking book. Like, I haven't seen anything yet, but I can just tell it's going to be adorable and fun, and something that you want to take into your closet and redo everything with. And yeah, we'll see.
So exciting. Hey, I'm going to put your website up right now. BeMoreWithLess.com is where you can go and check out Courtney and her awesome blog. Like I said, and follow her on Instagram. She's at BeMoreWithLess, right, Courtney? Yeah. And she loves Instagram. She's there a lot. I love Instagram too. So awesome. Well, thank you. I love you, lady. I'm so grateful for you. And thanks for taking the time today to do this. I hope it's...
And hugs and kisses to your whole team. I love all of you.
Thank you. Mwah. Well, we'll be in touch. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. If you have any comments, continue to leave comments down below. And if you have any questions or something that I can answer, or just put them in, and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks everyone. Thanks again, Courtney. Bye.